Welcome. Welcome back to Teacher Law class, and today we'll be continuing Survey of Mathematics, Chapter 3, Logic, and this is part 6. And in a few video that we have been studying about this logic, and today we'll be focusing something called arguments. Okay, arguments and truth tables. So why suddenly we learn back again truth tables? Actually, it's the same thing. We are using truth table to prove that whether an argument is valid or invalid. This is what we'll be doing here. Okay, so first, what is an argument? Okay, argument is different from the argument that you have with a woman. It's totally different because arguments here have logic. Okay, an argument in this case of logic, remember here, consists of two premises and one conclusion. So just an example here, you see this is an argument and it has the first premise, the second premise, and have a conclusion here. You see, first premise, second premise, and you have a conclusion here, just like the others. Okay. However, before I really talk about this premise and this about conclusion, let me just do a quick revision before we go into this part because it's related. Okay, so in about 3.4, which is the part 4 video, we talk about three theories of equivalent. Okay, so what we have learned, the first thing is that we learned that P or Q is equivalent to Q or P. P and Q is equivalent to Q and P, and P biconditional Q is equal to Q biconditional P, and this is what we have learned. Correct? Okay. And the second thing we learn is that P or negation Q is equivalent to negation P to negation Q, and also P or Q is equivalent to negation P to Q. And from this, we learn that here and here are opposite to each other, and of course here, the Q side here will be the same. Okay. Here, and here will be O, and here will be S. Okay, this is what we have learned here. And the next one, we also learned that the third one, which is contrapositive, which means that with P to Q, it will be the same thing or equivalent to negation Q to negation P. And these are the three theories of equivalent that we have learned, and I will not repeat. Okay, you can just go back to part 4 video and get to know it. Okay, and once you know this one, let me come back to this one. An argument, as I have mentioned, it always have a first premises, which I call as P1, then I have P2, then I have a conclusion here. Okay, so when you look at it carefully, this one, direct reasoning. Okay, here says a direct reasoning, and this is a valid argument. Okay, so first we talk about the 4 valid arguments, then we talk about the 4 invalid arguments on below. Okay, so if an argument is given that P to Q in the first premises and the second premise is P to Q, I mean the second is P and its conclusion is Q, then it is a direct reasoning. Okay, actually, yeah. And if it is contrapositive reasoning, if it's given P to Q, if the premises 2 is negation Q, conclusion should be negation P. If it's disjunctive reasoning, if it's P or Q, it should be negation P Q. And if it is P or Q, also the same, it should be negation Q to P. And if transitive reasoning, P to Q on the first premise, and second premise is Q to R, the conclusion should be P to R or negation R to negation P. So when you look at this one, don't be amazed by those seems like complicated thing. Okay, just look at here. P to Q here. Okay, you can see here. P to Q, and if you notice, it actually here have this idea. P to Q. Can you see that? P to Q, which means that P2 to conclusion Q. P to Q, P to Q here. And of course, the same thing here on the contrapositive reasoning. P to Q, which is the same thing as negation Q to negation P. Isn't that what we have learned in the third one here? Look at here. P to Q is equivalent to negation Q to negation P. P to Q is equivalent to negation Q to negation P. Remember, this is what we call as contrapositive. Okay, this is what we call as contrapositive of this conditional statement. Okay, and the same thing here. Disjunctive. P or Q, which gives you negation P to Q. Look at the second one here. P or Q, which is equivalent to negation P to Q. P or Q, which gives you negation P to Q. Okay, exactly the same thing right here. However, there's another one, the increase one thing. Okay, here. P or Q is the same thing as negation Q to P. So don't worry that why there's suddenly another extra one. Okay, just look at here. Okay, let me highlight here. And here. If you realize negation P to Q, which is the first blue color here, actually when you do contrapositive on this one, remember contrapositive means we need to switch the place and we change the sign. So Q will be in front and you put the negation. P will be at the back and we remove the negation. And now you realize that it is exactly the same thing as the second one. So it will be negation Q and arrow to P. So it's the same thing basically. So you can just try to negate and do the contrapositive and you can get the answer. And here, transitive reasoning. Okay, just now we learned about direct reasoning, which means that it's exactly the same thing. Contrapositive reasoning, which means that we are using the contrapositive here. Disjunctive reasoning, we learned about this is all right. That's why it's called disjunctive. And the last one called transitive reasoning, because P to Q, Q to R. So the answer is P to R. So this is a basic concept here. Example, here is P, here is Q, here is R. If I go from P to Q, then I go from Q to R. So isn't it the same thing as you go from P to R, just like this one? Same thing, right? That's why it is called transitive reasoning here. And of course, the next one here actually is the contrapositive of P to R. Just try to look at it. P to R is equivalent to R and P. You switch the place and you put a negation. Is it the same thing here? Okay, and that is called transitive reasoning. Okay, so don't worry here, it is somehow very interesting and easy thing. Okay, and of course we also have fallacy under the invalid statement, invalid argument here. We also have fallacy of the converse, fallacy of the inverse, which we know that converse and inverse are the same, however it's different from the direct reasoning here, which means that you see Q to P is not the same thing as P to Q, right? That's why this is a fallacy, it's invalid. And of course inverse, negation P to negation Q, is not the same thing as P to Q. So this is also the fallacy, it's also the invalid. And here also misuse of disjunctive reasoning and misuse of transitive reasoning. Okay, basically the same thing, just that disjunctive reasoning is supposed to be O then S, right? If it's opposite on the sign of the P and the same as the in the sign of Q. However, this make it different into SO instead our OS here. Get here, OS. But in this case, it makes it SO. That's why it becomes misuse, okay? And of course here, misuse in the transitive reasoning, P to Q, Q to R is supposed to be P to R. However, it changes from R to P, which is not supposed to be, okay? And just an idea here that the three dot that we always see here, I believe that you can see here, there's always a three dot here, three dot here, three dot here, three dot here. Actually, that means therefore, okay? And until here, once you understand this table, you might be confusing, huh? Then how about the truth table here? Okay, once you understand this table, most probably you no need to use truth table to answer the question actually. However, we still need to learn that argument you can be right in this form. Just look at here. The parenthesis of premise 1 and the premise of parenthesis 2, conditional conclusion, to conclusion. So this is a symbolic form of this one. Okay, so example, let me take the first direct reasoning and write it down. Okay, so premise 1, P to Q and N, so N, and premise 2 is a P, then to conclusion, which is R, and this is the symbolic form of my argument. Okay, the argument for this one. And now if I will create a truth table based on this one, and if all my answers are true, that means there is a valid argument. Okay, so I will create a truth table, true, false. Let me put here PQ, then true, false. Let me write it down properly. Okay. Okay. So it will be PQ, then true, 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 false, false, true, false, false. First we will find P to Q, then we will find P to Q and P, which is the whole thing here, and then we'll find the last one, P to Q and Q to and P to Q. Okay, and once I found the answer, the last answer here on the section here should be true, 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 true here. Okay, should be true, 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 true. If any one of it gets false, it becomes an invalid argument. Okay, so we've learned all this, and let's try the questions here. Okay, come, let's try here. Exercises. Determine whether this argument is valid or invalid. Okay, valid or invalid. So the first one, premise 1. If children murder their parents in cold blood, they deserve to be punished to the full extent of the law. And premise 2. These children murder their parents in cold blood. Okay, and conclusion. Therefore, these children deserve to be punished to the full extent of the law. Okay, once we read this one, the first thing we need to write is always the simple statement. So P, children murder their parents in cold blood. So you can say these children, or you can just directly write children murder their parents in cold blood. Okay, that is our P here. And now, what is our Q? The Q is the next sentence here. The children deserve to be punished, or you can say there. Or let's make it simple statement. Maybe you should write these children. Okay. Right. Okay. So these children deserve to be punished to the full extent of the law. Okay, and now we need to write this in a form of symbolic, just like here. Okay, can you look at here? Yeah, these are the form. So how are we gonna write it? So premise 1, so P1, or even without writing it is okay also. P1, if children murder their parents in cold blood, which is P, they deserve to be punished to the full extent of the law, which is Q. So you might be thinking, hey, we have if here, why don't we have the then here? So it's okay without it, okay? As long as it have if and comma, which means that actually is a conditional statement. And here the next one, P2. So P2. These children murder their parents in cold blood, which is the P. And we have our P here. Let's draw a line. And therefore means dot, dot, dot. Okay? These children deserve to be punished to the full extent of the law, which is Q. Okay, and we done writing it down, and now we need to decide whether is it a valid argument or an invalid argument. So when you look at it, doesn't it seem similar to what we have learned just now? It's P to Q, and here we also have P to Q. And we know that is what we call it as direct reasoning. So what we will write here, we will say, okay, the answer will be it is a valid argument. Why? Because oops, this is a little bit lagging. Because it is a direct reasoning. Okay, reasoning. Of course, sometimes you might thinking, how can I remember those four things? Okay, if you have learning with me throughout these videos, I believe that you can remember these four reasoning, which is direct reasoning, contrapositive reasoning, disjunctive reasoning, and transitive reasoning easily. Okay, however, if you doesn't remember, then you are feel free to use the truth table to prove it is right. Okay, remember, if you don't want to prove it using truth table, you must write here saying that it is a direct reasoning. Okay, you must write that. Okay, however, if you can't remember those direct reasoning, contrapositive, those things, just use truth table. Okay, if you want to use truth table, of course you also need to write all these things. Okay, and you need to remember the formula here that we learned just now. First, the premise 1 and premise 2, which leads to conclusion. Okay, so premise 1, P to Q, and premise 2 to conclusion. This is what we learned just now here. Premise 1 and premise 2 to conclusion. And now we need to create a truth table based on that. Okay, so PQ, and you draw a line, true, 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 false, false, true, false, false. And that is what we'll be doing. And the first one, P to Q. So P to Q. When it's P to Q, only true, false can make it false. So true, 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 false, 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 true, true, and of course false, false will be true. And the next one, we need to find P to Q and P. So P to Q and P. P to Q and P. So it becomes this one and P. So and only both true can make it true. So true and true, false, 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 true, false, and the last one, false, true, become false. And the last one, P to Q and P to Q. So this to Q. So true, true makes it true. False, false makes it true. Remember, condition, only true to false can make it false, or else others will be true. So false, true become true, and false, false become true. And now you can see that the whole thing here are true. And you can say it is a valid argument. Done. Okay. So if you want to do using without doing the third table, just do this step. Okay. Let me just highlight these steps. 1, 2, 3, and you are done. However, if you want to prove it using the truth table, you need to do the steps of this one. Okay. This one, of course, for sure. This one, and this one, and this one. Okay. This whole step basically is replacing direct reasoning, the word direct reasoning. Okay. This one, if you doesn't know this one, for sure you can't do this one, because this is the first premise, second premise, and conclusion, which is exactly the same thing here. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So I hope you get a concept here, and let's move forward to the next questions. Determine whether this argument is valid or invalid. Okay, here the question says, if Lo is here with us, then the world is bright. The world is bright. Lo is here with us, therefore. Okay, and now remember, P, Q. We have two things right here, and now we need to write it down. Lo is here with us, so P. Lo is here with us. Okay, with us. And now Q is the world is bright. And now let's try to figure out whether this is a valid or invalid in the symbolic form. Okay, so now we need to write. The first premise is P to Q. So P to Q. The second say the world is bright. So Q. The world is bright. Draw a line and say therefore. So dot dot dot. Lo is here with us. So P. And now when we look at this one, P to Q, and here say Q to P. So you can think that P to Q becomes Q to P. There is a converse here, and if it is a converse, which means that this is a fallacy of the converse. Okay, let's look back to our notes here. This is the fallacy of the converse. P to Q becomes Q to P, and now we can write here answer. Answer. It is an invalid argument. Why? Because this is the fallacy of the converse. That's it. There's our answer. However, if you doesn't remember, what is the fallacy of the converse? Sometimes we doesn't remember. Then easy. we just need to create a truth table. Okay, based on this one, remember premise 1 and premise 2 to conclusion. Okay, and now let's create a truth table here. PQ, P to Q, P to Q and Q, and the last one P to Q. Of course, we need a parenthesis here. This one we need to have parenthesis because or else this one will become the conditional. Okay, and Q to P. And now stay for a while and try to do this. So true, 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 false, false, true, false, false. And P to Q, again, true, true will be true, true, false will become false, false, true will become true, false, false will become true. And P to Q, and this is the P to Q, and Q. And of course, and again, it is both of it true will become true. So true, true is true, false, false is false, true, true is true, true, false is false. And the last one, this 2P. So 2, okay, again here. So true, true will be true, false, true will become true, true, false will become false, and false, false will become true. And look at here, we have an F here. So which means that this is an invalid. This is an invalid argument. Okay, this is an invalid argument. And that's all. Okay, so if you do want to write the fallacy of the converse, then you need to do a truth table. Okay, and we have 2 more questions left, and we can try this one. So next questions here. Determine whether this argument is valid or invalid. So here, children murder parents because they fear abuse. There are mitigating circumstances to the murder. Yeah, there are mitigating circumstances. Then children deserve a lighter sentence. So we can see that this whole argument contains of P, Q, and R as the simple statement here. Okay. So now we need to try to figure it out. P, children murder parents because they fear abuse. Okay, and the next one here, they are, which is the children are, mitigating circumstances to the murder. And the last one are, children deserve a lighter sentence. Okay, and now we have P, we have Q, we have R here, but what we are doing here is exactly the same thing. So now the first premise, premise 1, we know that it is P to Q. And the next one, if they are mitigating circumstances, Q, then they deserve a lighter sentence, Q to R. And the last one, therefore, if children murder parents because of the fear abuse, which is P, to they deserve a lighter sentence, which is R. And we know P to Q, Q to R, and P to R, which means that this is a valid argument. Why? Because this is a transitive reasoning. Because this is a transitive reasoning. So easy. Yeah, that is how it is. P to Q, Q to R, and that's P to R. And the last one, let's look at the last one. Okay, translate the argument into a symbolic form, then determine whether each argument is valid or invalid. Okay, so let's try to look at it first. Okay, so if I am tired, so I am tired is 1. I am tired. And B, I am age. I'm an age. And R, I am nasty. So I am nasty. So when we look at this one, just look at here. P to Q, and the second premise will be Q to R. However, this is it. Therefore, I am nasty. R, I am tired. It becomes P. So this is what we call it as the misuse of transitive reasoning. So what we write here is, it is an invalid argument because it is a misuse of transitive reasoning. And that's all. Okay, so I believe that you think this topic is quite easy, so feel free to comment below if you have any questions, and thank you so much for watching this video. Be safe and thank you.